You're listening to the Chris the Freelancer podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Chris the Freelancer podcast. This is the podcast all about location independence, time freedom, and living life on your terms. Each week we interview a new guest on the show, and today I'm sitting down with Steph Danforth, a freelance designer who built her online career while traveling the world. In this week's episode, we talk about how Steph went from working at a coffee shop to starting an Etsy store and freelancing on Upwork and Fiverr. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 13 with Steph Danforth.
For show notes and more, visit christhefreelancer.com.
All right, I'm here with Stephanie Danforth. You might have seen Stephanie before on the Home Sweet Globe YouTube channel, now just called Nick Danforth. She's been traveling with Nick, her husband and wife duo, for about 4 years now, and she's built a location-independent career as a freelancer using Upwork and Fiverr, and also the first female ever on the Chris the Freelancer podcast.
Yay! So exciting.
Yay for diversity. No, I'm hoping to have more females on the show actually, and probably going to get Denise on eventually,
Yeah.
but she is, I don't know, more of a private person, so that'll be a bit of a challenge. But the thing is, I guess, with digital nomads, is it is a male-dominated thing, wouldn't you say, for the most part?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely male-dominated. It's getting there. We're slowly getting there. But
Well, there's things like digital nomad girls and other, like people like yourself that are encouraging, more females to get into it. But I mean, it doesn't really matter what gender you are. It's available for both men and women.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I like to start at the very beginning. You started traveling about 4 years ago with your husband, Nick. So what was the thinking behind the whole journey? Was it just to travel at first, or to build a career, or was location independence the always on your mind?
At first, it was definitely just to travel. It wasn't at all, I think even when we started traveling, it wasn't even a thing, like digital nomadism. Like, the term existed, but it wasn't really, there wasn't like a whole scene, around it. It was just like a few people in Bangkok or something, like at the time it was still super small. So when we first started traveling, we were just like visiting family and friends and stuff. And then we decided, I think it was 3 years ago now, just over 3 years, we decided to travel around in a camper van. And so like our first year was kind of on and off. And then our second year was, we spent most of the year traveling around the U.S. in a kind of homemade camper van.
Wow.
That was our first, I guess, step. And not many people, some people may not consider that like digital nomadism as we know it now, but that was kind of our journey into it. So I think it was 6 months into, no, it was a year into that we took a trip to Europe, because we didn't have rent, with our camper van. And so we just decided, like, let's see if, we can work, or at least sort of work, while we're in Europe for a month. And that was my first trip to Europe ever. So we spent our time working and mainly sightseeing, but that, I think, was what did it for us. So we went back after that and sold the van. Went to China for a little bit. Went back to the U.S. And then from there, it was pretty much, we kind of knew once we figured out, we don't have to pay rent anymore. Like, we don't have the van to think about. Yeah. So we just kind of kept going.
Wow. Yeah. Sounds adventurous.
Yeah.
And during this whole time, were you guys working online, or how were you funding it?
So Nick was already working online, like he was already working from home when we started. So even before we got married, he was working from home. So it was a pretty easy transition for him. Mm-hmm. There's always, bits and pieces you have to pick up on transitioning from even working at home to working remotely, with like the hour differences and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But then I was working at a coffee shop originally, and then left my job so that we could do the van thing.
Yeah.
And once we moved into the van, I actually decided that the best thing for me to do was to start an Etsy store. So not really digital nomad friendly thing, because I was selling physical products.
Yeah.
So I would make jewelry in our van and then sell it like out of the van, just shipping it mainly to other people in the US, wherever we would go. Then after that, I think I did that for 2 years. And then once we started traveling more internationally, like after the first Europe trip and our first trip to China, and I kind of let it go because it would not work for me to do internationally because I had all the tools and stuff with me back in the US.
Okay. So you were building products out of the van?
Yeah.
Okay. What was it, if you don't mind me asking?
Handmade jewelry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And where'd you learn those skills, or just picked it up?
I totally just picked it up. I saw something on Pinterest that I was like, I can make that.
Yeah.
And I did, and just kind of went from there. So that was my first introduction to anything e-commerce, anything like selling online or anything digital. And so I kind of figured out what trends were, like what I saw other people pinning or buying, and then made stuff based off of that.
Okay.
And then just sold it.
Was it like a bit of a stab in the dark in the beginning, or you put a lot of research into finding a niche or a product that would sell?
It was a total stab in the dark. Like I knew nothing about business or like anything. So I just I remember I made like a batch of rings or something. I don't even think I sold any of them, but it was just like the first few things I tried making to get started. And then I eventually landed on 1 or 2 designs that sold, and then eventually hit on a niche that sold well too. So. And
so you guys ditched the van, went to Europe, right? That's the next part. And I guess you didn't have that option to do Etsy anymore. What was the next step?
So the next step, I paused the Etsy store and just picked it back whenever we were in the US, picked it back up when we were in the US. Mm-hmm. And then I, in the meantime, started kind of dabbling in web design, kind of transitioning to a similar vein, but just something I could do all on the computer instead of toting around a bag full of supplies and stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I dabbled in web design. I made a couple sites for personal projects and then for friends and stuff like that. And then I think I continued trying to do Etsy. Like I made some prints or something that I tried to sell as digital downloads, but it wasn't really working.
Okay.
And I reached a point where I kind of realized, even with Nick's income, I realized I wanted to be contributing again. Mm-hmm. Instead of just kind of like doing stuff on the side, kind of just doing my own thing or just pursuing passion projects. It was awesome that I had the flexibility to, like most people don't have that, because he was able to support us both. But I realized that if I was able to make the same amount as him or more, that it would really help us, save or do more, travel to more places. We wouldn't have to worry about how cheap places were. Mm. So, yeah. Okay,
and while he worked basically full-time through this whole process, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would be working on like whatever passion projects or websites or whatever I was learning and teaching myself while he was working during the day.
Okay, so the web design, I guess that continued to build. You built your skills, you built up clients, and that's what you're doing to this day, right? And you do also logos as well, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so from me kind of figuring things out and freelancing, I took a couple courses, and I taught myself a lot, but then I eventually picked a course that I thought was really good because they kind of taught key elements for what I wanted to do or what they said would make money, and that was what was important to me at the time was, okay, I want to learn something that I know I can sell for sure versus having like a mishmash of skills and kind of knowing pieces and parts. So I did that and very quickly realized that even the pieces and parts that I had, I could already make money with. So once I realized that I could start making money with even like small design things or small web stuff, I immediately got set up on Elance before it was Upwork. And I think I would apply to jobs for maybe 2 to 3 hours a day. And it took me, I think, about a month until I found something. And then, in the meantime, I was still learning and teaching myself. But then I found something, and it was a small gig, but it pretty much spiraled from there. Like, the first job I found, I was then able to find other jobs on the platforms easier. I kind of nailed down the rhythm of it, like what I said to people, and what types of jobs I wanted to find, and what I was looking for, and then it just spiraled from there. I continued to get freelance work until even through it changing to Upwork. And then right now I'm doing just that, occasionally Upwork, mostly freelance stuff from clients I've already worked with. And then the Fiverr,
Okay, so what resources did you use during that time to learn those skills? You mentioned that you took a course.
Yeah. So I when I was first starting out, I was learning web design is what I thought I wanted to get into. Now I've kind of landed more in strictly just design and branding. But when I started out, I was looking at, I used Codecademy quite a bit, and also the course that I took from Skill Crush is what it's called. Yeah.
Okay, so you would recommend Skill Crush to people? I've used Codecademy before, so I think that's a pretty good one.
Yeah, I definitely recommend both. Skill Crush was definitely a bit more, but they lay out things in a really easy to understand way, and it's all going about it. And like all of these pieces are the foundation and the framework for what you need to, for the class I took, it was what you need to know to make a website from scratch, and then the skills that you need to know to also land a job with that. So I kind of include like some businessy type stuff in there too.
Yeah, that's so important because you can learn all these things and just continually spin your wheels if you don't know how to actually go out into the marketplace and get work and deal with clients and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Was there anybody kind of, I guess you had Nick helping you along, any other like mentors or people motivating you to do this?
Not really, actually. A lot of it was I just wanted to learn it, and so I just kind of went after it. And I really enjoyed, especially at the beginning, I really enjoyed seeing it work and how it, how when I changed the text in my proposals, I saw like different responses and things like that. So I really enjoyed just playing with it. Yeah. So it was really fun.
Do you feel like the web design and logo design and now branding, that was a sort of natural progression from the Etsy stuff? Or at that point, did you evaluate a bunch of different, here's a bunch of paths I could go down, and then kind of, I don't know, maybe you just tried the design stuff and it worked, so you kept going? Or what was the process to kind of find what work you were going to do?
It was very natural. Yeah, I found jobs doing web design stuff, like all sorts of different facets of web design, sometimes WordPress, sometimes from scratch, sometimes more just the design side than the web side. And I kind of quickly realized what I was better at and what I enjoyed more. Mm-hmm. And I gravitated more towards that kind of stuff, which I think has led me to where I am now, kind of more focusing on the branding and the logo design side.
Okay, so I guess the process was you started building these skills, and then when did Elance come into it? Was it a particular point where you're like, I feel ready to, offer this to clients? Or what was the moment where you decided that, okay, I'm ready? Okay,
well, now I take it back what I said earlier. I had one friend that did the same class with me. So he lived with Nick and I. He's like an old friend of ours, and he lived with Nick and I in Portland for a month. And we both were like, bouncing all these ideas off each other, like, oh, we could make a bunch of like really quick and easy, like $500 websites and do like a bunch of them in a month. And so we both decided to do the same course at the same time. And that was kind of what pushed me forward through some of that course. But I think it really was, that course had a particular, they had like a PDF that outlined like, if you know how to do this, you can make money doing this type of job, and gave like real life examples from job sites, from Elance, of like actual job descriptions and postings, and that it just like clicked. I was like, I already know how to do that because that was taught in the first part of the course. And so then I just kind of was like, well, why do I need to finish the course? I didn't even finish the course. Wow. I just started going off of what I already knew, and because I wanted to try, and I wanted to make money, quickly. I didn't want to wait a bunch and to like get something perfect. I just wanted to see what I could get, and I knew I would kind of move up from there. So.
And the dealing with clients thing, did that come naturally, or was that something you learnt over time? I know like some people are just naturally good at it. Like Denise, for example, she's just great with people. She's honest, and her genuineness comes across, and she tells it to people straight, and they appreciate that. And so, she usually, any job interview or client interview she generally nails. Was it similar for you, or did you have to build up that kind of skill of dealing with clients?
It was, I think, a mix for me. Yeah. There were definitely times where I found it easy, and it might have just been the client. Actually, I think it probably was the client. But I had a harder time dealing with like difficult clients. Yeah. Like when people would keep asking you for stuff and it's out of scope, or they were rude or mean or refused to pay for whatever reason. Some kind of situations like that where I just didn't have I had a hard time separating like business from personal on those kinds of things. Otherwise, like I feel like I do a pretty good job with my clients, but I tend to take things too personally. Yeah. I think it's just my personality though. What would
you attribute the success with Upwork to? Is it really as simple for you as building the skills and then continually putting yourself out there and learning from every experience? Or has there been some key learnings that have really made the difference?
I think for me it actually was pretty simple. I took a lot of time to understand the platform, and looked at all of the pages, all of the FAQs, and then I looked at a lot of different resources for writing proposals and how to find jobs. And it took me a while at first, especially when I was still on Elance. It took me that whole first month after, hours a day applying to stuff to even get one small job. But it was a fun process of trying to figure out what worked, what didn't, what people responded to, what they didn't. And, it was never concrete necessarily, but I would mess with the wording on things or the search filters I was using, or try different things. Like maybe I'll have better luck searching for higher price jobs instead of lower price jobs. Like, I don't know, why not? I'll try it. So I just kind of tried a lot of things, and once something worked, I continued to do that.
And now you're on Fiverr as well, and I've heard that Fiverr is now your main thing. Is that right?
Yeah. So that was super unexpected, actually. Very timely, but super unexpected. I threw something up there on a whim, and it was something I've been kind of thinking about for a long time, and had something up like a couple years ago, actually, but just redid it with like a nicer gig cover and all that sort of thing, and it exploded. I think I'm making close to $2,000 a month off of the one gig.
Wow.
Yeah.
That seems to be the thing with Fiverr. I find that I've done a bit of Fiverr, and I think I've approached it the wrong way. I've thought of what things can I offer to people for $5 that isn't totally exploiting my total exploitation if I did that job for $5. And then so I sort of put those gigs up, and then nothing happens. Whereas I feel like the other way is the smarter way of and reverse engineering the process of what are people actually looking for, and finding a niche and then figuring out how to deliver on that. It seems like a similar thing for you with the Etsy thing is you just took a stab and it paid off, but it just goes to show that with Fiverr, if you nail that niche, it's like I guess it's like business in general. If you nail that niche, just the platform is just gonna feed you more and more clients.
It really does. I mean, I've, with Fiverr in particular, tried a couple other gigs like in the similar vein and like similar styled photos and examples and everything, and had like a fraction of the traffic. And I don't know if it's just because I have reviews on the other one, or if it's really just that for some reason that one just nails it. I don't know.
Okay, and that was the second. It was this. You put up one a few years ago and it didn't do anything, and then you modified it and then it suddenly worked. So you got it on the second try.
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty lucky.
Yeah.
But I guess the lesson for people on Fiverr out there is to just test, I guess. Put it out there, and if nobody buys it, then move on quickly and try something else. Would you say that'd be your advice to people wanting to succeed on Fiverr?
Yeah, definitely. You have to play around with it. I mean, if some categories have package options too, not every category, that you can offer different packages on your gig. And I would definitely say play with those. I mean, I mess with them all the time, even now still. But then also, I think I really had to kind of, I don't know, like get over myself a little bit. And I mean, I started with a $5 one.
Yeah.
But then the gig that I'm offering has packages enabled. So it had a 5 and then I think a 15 and then a 30 is how I started. And now it's 20, 50, and 70. But I mean, you definitely have to start at the 5 because that's what people are looking for. And when you have no reviews, you got to start somewhere. But if you're really quick and prompt and just super, super friendly, that's what I've noticed is even if I can't deliver something, as long as I respond and I'm like really nice, people love it. I've gotten so many good reviews just from that, which I think has helped, get more business.
Okay, so it's important, I guess, thinking that, why would I do this for $5? You got to think that, I guess it's an investment in the future. You do, the work for under what you really should be getting paid in order to build up those reviews, and then you can get a consistent number of orders and then do what you did and kind of put the price of the packages up. Is that kind of how you scale on Fiverr? Or if you would say you wanted to increase your business even more, would the next stage be to create new offers, or would it be to just continually raise the prices of the first offer?
I don't know. I think it can go either way. I definitely think that's the way you have to start scaling. Is you've got to start low, and even though everyone else is offering it for $5, if you have, a really good gig photo and a solid description, and people can tell if you don't have good wording or English, or even if you sound, I don't know, cranky or something in your description, then people can tell and they're less likely to buy from you, I think. Whereas if you're happy and excited to be doing work for them, even though like for me it's logo design, surprisingly, because it's a very saturated market on Fiverr, but I've just had so many people even tell me in messages and message me later saying, it was just such a pleasure working with you. I would happily pay you a lot more just because they enjoyed the process. So that's really cool to see. I think that's been the biggest takeaway for me is I started really being on top of that, actually even just a few weeks ago, of responding to people and always, putting my best face on kind of thing. And people would take the time to write paragraphs in reviews, basically. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think if you deliver a lot of value for something like $5, you'd be a pretty, I don't know what kind of person you'd be to get angry at that person for low quality if that's your budget. I remember I've hired some freelancers on Fiverr to do book covers, so basic graphic design, Well, actually, just the one freelancer, and it was supposed to be a 24-hour turnaround, and she was late, and the result was still good, and I was just like, how can I be angry at this person for like delivering it 12 hours late when I've only spent $10 and the result is good? So I was just like, great job, I'll work with you again. And then I worked with her again, and yeah, I can see how if you start on $5 and just do great work, that you can really build up those reviews, which is such an important asset, right, on Fiverr. Mm-hmm. And I guess the same goes for Upwork as well, as having those reviews. Was after you had a few jobs under your belt and a few good reviews, is that where I guess it became like stable and scalable for you? Yeah,
definitely. Even on Elance before it was Upwork, once I had maybe 3 or 4, I started getting invited to interview a lot more, and I would usually get responses from almost every job that I would apply to. So even if I didn't get the job, at least the fact that they responded showed me like I'm definitely doing something right. Yeah. But then on Upwork, after a while, I think also what did is their whole top rated thing. Mm. I think that's really big. Okay, so you achieved top rated status? Mm-hmm. Okay, wow, yeah. No, Denise has done that as well, and ever since that has happened, people, I don't know, I'm about to say throwing themselves at her, but maybe it's not that dramatic, but definitely more people have come out of the woodworks, and she's definitely built up that credibility. And just looking at her profile, it just looks so good to have all these jobs with every one of them 5 stars. Mm. Do you have any advice for like how to always meet and exceed the client's expectations? I mean, you can always like do your best, but is there any ways, any tips for really delivering and making the client happy? I'd say similarly to Fiverr, just what I was touching on with communication, just keeping people up to date. I've worked on a lot of projects where it's taken months, weeks or months to do something, and for me, it can be all too easy to, if there's a lag in something or I'm waiting on something from the client and I know it's going to take them a week or 2 to get to me. Even me checking in with them and, not nagging them, but just, sending sometimes you got to nag clients too, but more just like showing that you're there, showing that you're still interested, you're still working, you're still there. In those types of times, but even times when like I couldn't deliver something on time because I was traveling or I already worked way too much that day. I've even had those where it was just like, sorry, like I can't get to it today. And, just the fact that I was really honest and told them, in a nice way that I, what was going on. Most of the times people just really appreciate knowing versus, you leaving them in the dark, and then delivering, it's like going that extra step to just let them know, I think has helped me a lot on a lot of projects. And I suppose all this stuff is stuff you talk about, and you're launching a course very soon. Hopefully it's up by the time you're listening to this. That's me talking to the audience. But yeah, so tell us about the course and how you decided to get started with that. Yeah, so the course is basically outlines a lot of the things I've just talked about, communication with clients, but then also like my story and how I, got to where I am today with Upwork, getting top rated, but also, being able to consistently land jobs, and basically just showing people how I did that. So the templates that I use for proposals, and then also my, guidelines for what I do on my own profile and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be launching it on Udemy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Do you have a release date, or you don't? It should be out by the time the podcast is up. Okay. Yeah. All right. So what do people, I guess we'll link to it in the show notes when it's ready. So yeah, definitely look in the show notes for that. Awesome. All right. Well, I like to talk about the work stuff and the travel stuff on this podcast. Yeah. What have been, I mean, we've done so much travel. You've
pretty much, I don't think you've done Africa yet, have you? But you've done pretty much everywhere else, right?
Yeah, I haven't done Africa or anything in South America, actually.
Oh, wow.
So I got, 2 big continents still, which is crazy.
That's unusual for people from the US, right? To not even, explore South America. It's the same time zone, short flights.
It would be super ideal for freelancing and working with US clients, that's for sure. But yeah, no, just haven't gotten over there. We kind of landed in Asia as one of our kind of first stops besides Europe, and kind of have just kept coming back. So
okay, what's some of your favorites
in Asia or in
anywhere in the world?
I would say some of my favorites are, I've really liked Slovakia. Was just back in Europe a few weeks ago. I really liked Slovakia, and southern France was really nice. Not really great for working, but really nice.
Why? Just because it's great for seeing nature, but not for offices? Is that?
Yeah, the Wi-Fi was a bit hard to come by, and so I would usually just tether, which was okay. Like the cell networks and stuff were decent. Like I still had 3G or 4G maybe. I made it work. Yeah, I really like Europe. I like Asia too. Like beaches, Koh Lanta is definitely a favorite, both for the location and the co-working. It's amazing. Like if I ever need to get stuff done, I usually want to go there.
What are your favorite cities to work in? Yeah, Chiang Mai is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
And you guys have been going to Koh Hub and Koh Lanta since it opened.
Yeah.
Anywhere else that is particularly good for digital nomads who maybe want to get stuck into some work? It's
a tricky question because we are, I guess, not very typical and always searching out some of like the hot spots. We just kind of go places and make it work. Yeah. I mean, like we spent a lot of time in Beijing, which is not at all like good for work. I mean, awful. But anyway, I really like Budapest and would say it's pretty good for working. There's not a huge nomad community, but it's definitely there. They have, some meetups and stuff that you can get in touch with people through on, get in touch with people on Facebook, like Facebook groups and stuff. And it's really chill. Like if you're kind of looking for maybe not quite as much work, like if you want to get stuff done, but also have like good chill time. And I really liked Budapest and hanging out with the people there. It was very chill. Trying to think. We haven't spent much time like in a lot of places. We just keep going back to like Koh Lanta and Chiang Mai.
How do you make the decision of where you want to travel? Is it you like see something that inspires you maybe on Pinterest or something and then like, oh, Nick, we have to go there. That's often what happens with Denise. Is like she'll see a photo or something. I've seen it as well. Like I use Momentum, and like man, that gives you wanderlust. Like I've been. So for those who don't know, Momentum is this Chrome extension where if you click on New Tab, it comes up with a beautiful picture and the time, and you can also put in your main focus for the day. And recently they've been showing me these photos of exotic locations, and today I'm working with a picture of like a beach in the Maldives. And I've even started I do a little bit of Pinterest, and I've started putting some of those pictures into Pinterest boards as a save for later kind of thing. But just for pure travel, just they're mainly beautiful landscapes and is it what's the kind of I feel like everyone likes to travel in a different way. How would you describe the way you guys travel? It's quite leisurely. I suppose, not too much crazy adventure.
For us now, especially after so long of being on the road and kind of not knowing what we're doing, and lots of bouncing around, lots of trying everything. I mean, lots of times where we would, our first trip to Europe, we barely worked. And Whereas there's other times when we go to like Koh Lanta or Chiang Mai, and that's all we do is work. So kind of all ends, both ends of the spectrum, all ends, all things. I think now after all the travel, we're definitely at a slower pace and try to look for places where we know we can get stuff done, but also places where we have friends. We're definitely open to checking out new places, but after so long on the road, I think we've realized that community is a really big thing that's important to us and just needed after, so long of, you make a lot of great friends when you're on the road, but it is hard after a while to constantly be seeing people go or not being able to really have deeper friendships or relationships because you only see them for a month here and there. So we try to more and more now just go where we know people and then occasionally take trips to see somewhere new that we're really interested in.
Okay. Would you say that's one of the biggest lessons you've learned from such a long time traveling? I had Nick on the YouTube channel and we talked a lot about, being a digital nomad for 4 years and how that kind of what you learn from that experience and how your mindset changes. How's it been for you personally?
Yeah, for me personally, it's been good. I mean, it's been a journey for sure. I think it actually wasn't until recently that I started having a really hard time with it. Oh, okay. And it was like, I think earlier this year, we decided to try and do more of our own thing and kind of do more just travel for the sake of travel or like, we did get more plugged in with like the nomad scene or whatever, whatever you want to call it, I don't know. But it was very, I think, different pace and very different than how we started traveling, which was kind of similar. I guess we've kind of always stuck with a similar vein of to see people we know with occasional trips of new things. So yeah, for me, there's always ups and downs, I think. And that's also just life, but it's been very interesting kind of figuring out what's important and how to balance the work and also, once for me, like we've both gone to a point where we can freelance if we need, but we want to do, I think, more passive income stuff just to have more free time to do other projects that we want to work on, whether that be freelancing or for me it'd probably be like design stuff or maybe some e-commerce stuff. So I don't know.
And how has it been doing this with a partner, with your husband? Because it's not the traditional like marriage sort of sequence, is it? A lot of people will talk about how they didn't want to do the usual sequence of get married, get a mortgage, have kids, and then work and then retire kind of thing. But you guys still did the marriage thing, but then you've been like traveling and definitely kind of breaking the stereotype of marriage as you go. So what's that been like, having, being together pretty much all the time and having each other to support each other? And
yeah. It's been great. It has its ups and downs like any relationship, and I think it's been really challenging, but in a good way at times. It really forces you to, if there are any problems or like things that are problems in your relationship, then you're going to know about it a lot faster because you're around that person all the time. So I think it even just traveling, seeing like you guys or other friends that we have that travel as a couple, or someone that's traveling with their just boyfriend or girlfriend that they have only been in a relationship with for a short time, it really I think if you can do it for a while, really goes to show that you have a good relationship, because something about being around each other all the time and working together and figuring out how to travel together, it's way different than just living together. And it kind of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is here, but it accelerates everything that's, anything in your relationship, issues or good things, and kind of magnifies all of that.
Yeah, I often say that to people that I feel that travel either makes or breaks your relationship. When like a few years ago, I had four friends and two couples, and they all went on trips to Europe with each other. And by the time they came back, their relationships were over. And I don't think at the time that it spent that much time together, because when you're traveling together, you're spending all your time together basically. And I think that's one of the moments where I realized that Denise and I were a pretty good fit, because after we traveled, and it was amazing. It felt like the perfect kind of system, the perfect travel partner. We were spending lots of time together, but it worked. And I feel that this podcast isn't necessarily about relationship advice, but I would suggest to people that, if you have a partner and you want to test the relationship, go traveling.
Oh yeah, for sure. Even a short trip, something about it, you'll learn a lot. That's for sure.
So the next stage for you guys, we were talking a bit about it at dinner, but you're planning on spending more time in the US in the coming year or so. What led to that decision?
Oh man, it's definitely a mix of things. I know for me personally, it was having a lot to do with the hard time I was having earlier this year, dealing with travel and kind of the idea of, are we just doing this forever? Like, what are we doing? And kind of just starting to question what we're doing, where we're at, why we're doing what we're doing. So that was definitely it for me. Also a lot having to do with the community stuff. I mean, we're still both super plugged into the nomad community and love helping people learn and get started and, figure out their path, so to speak, and what they want to do. But I think we've also realized for ourselves that it might be time for us to take it even a little bit slower than we have been and spend more time with friends and family back in the US. And
all right, well, you mentioned that working, and I can see it when I see Nick with viewers that approach him, or how he talks to people. He's very supportive of new people wanting to follow a similar path to him and to you guys. You've even had viewers come out, and been inspired by, the story and having the YouTube channel. What are their main inspirations that they take from you guys, and what are they seeking usually?
Like YouTube viewers or people that know us?
Yeah, so you've had, for example, Dylan mentioned mutual friends of ours, Drew and Becca, and they, I believe, were inspired by the YouTube channel that you guys have and came out. What were they seeking from the whole experience?
When we first met them, I think they were saying that they were seeking a lot of freedom in different aspects, freedom in work. They were coming from some restaurant jobs and wanted to do something different. They didn't want to be locked into that, like the rest of their life. And freedom in lifestyle and breaking from mindsets. They came from the US, so mindsets maybe that you might have in Western culture and those sorts of things, or kind of the expectations, even like we were just talking about with expectations on marriage or relationships, like what you should do, and kind of breaking out of that mold. Yeah,
exactly. I think that I think that's the exciting or interesting thing to people, is they get caught up in this groupthink, especially if you're in that reality, like you're back in a Western country, whether it be Australia or the US, and you're working a normal job and all your friends have a normal job. It can be so far out of your reality to think that people are working while traveling. And now being so far into it, and I'm not even as far into it as you guys, I think to myself how normal it feels, and how that it's not that big of a deal. But I think the big thing that inspires people is the fact that it goes against the mold, sort of breaks the idea of what you're supposed to do or what the expectation is or the stereotypical path. I definitely, before I just sort of discovered that people were doing this and decided to do it myself, I was definitely just following the standard path. And I think that's the biggest thing that like people get from watching you guys on YouTube and watching me on YouTube, is that just opens their eyes to like, oh, okay, there is another option out there and I can do this. Mm-hmm. Okay, any final advice for the people wanting to make the plunge, live similar lifestyles to you?
I would just say go for it. I mean, there's so much advice out there, and especially now, so many resources, like, tips on where to go and how to find accommodation. It's worlds different from when we started just traveling even. So I'd say if you're thinking about it, even just go for, if you only have 2 weeks, just go for 2 weeks and try it and see what you think. Even if you're not working and are just learning while you're on the road, it's definitely a step in the right direction, and you'll get a taste of what it's like if you were to pursue it full time. So go for it.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Steph.
Yeah, definitely. Loved it.
All right, guys, thanks for listening. If you want to find out more about Steph, as well as everything else we just talked about in today's episode, you can find all of that information and more in the show notes. Just head to christhefreelancer.com/podcast/Steph-Danforth. That's christhefreelancer.com/STEPH-DANFORTH. As always, thanks for listening. Be sure to hit subscribe, and we hope to see you in the next episode.